I'm here with Daisy, a men's life coach. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Definitely. I love your content. I came across your page on TikTok and I reached out and you agreed to come on. What inspired you to focus your TikTok content specifically on men's health and wellness?
See, that's a really good question. I don't think that there's anything in particular that inspired me. I think it's just something that I'm innately really passionate about because I believe in giving back to people who have given to me, and I feel like it's been a reoccurring pattern that like men tend to be very supportive in so many different ways that they're not really accredited for. And I also feel like men, considering the fact that, society not always is accepting of them having emotions or them having, difficulties or, supporting them to learning how to express themselves. So I kind of like to lean more into giving men a safe space to kind of lean into those feelings because I've personally have had a lot of male friends who have confided in me, and I just feel like it's really prevalent but not addressed for some reason. But I definitely am not just sometimes. I say I'm sometimes a safe space because other times I be clocking men, I be clocking their tea, like, yo, you gotta get this together or else what's going on here. But either way, yes, life coach all around, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it.
That's great. I think it's really important to hold people accountable. What are some common misconceptions about men's health that you just frequently address?
You know what? I wouldn't say that I necessarily address this. I would say that this is something that I know. But the way that men communicate, it's difficult to address. It would definitely be like a one-on-one thing as well. So it's hard to give a general synopsis of like general advice to give to men. But I know and I've picked up on the fact that men tend to say things in a really blunt or like surface level blanket statements that don't necessarily reflect how they're actually feeling, and it gets them in a lot of trouble in a lot of different aspects where they'll say something that seems really brash or harsh or wow, I can't believe you feel this way. But in reality, it's something a little bit more nuanced. So I guess it would be amazing to be able to communicate one on one with men with ways that they may be miscommunicating and inadvertently causing difficulties and arguments in their life.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. How do you approach the balance between physical fitness and mental wellness for men?
That's a good question. I think that they kind of go hand in hand. I think if you mentally believe that you are respectable as a man, you will receive respect. I talk a lot about that too. How really, in reality, the way that we're treated is a reflection of how we see ourselves to a majority of situations. And so, if you truly see yourself as worth respecting, worth taking care of, and worthy as a man, you will want to take care of yourself, because you're worth that much, right? You're worth getting up in the morning, you're worth brushing your teeth every day, you're worth exercising and getting fit and being comfortable in your own skin.
Can you share some effective wellness habits that men often overlook but can drastically improve their health?
I think I mentioned one. I'll be honest, brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth. Some of them be like, oh, I'm not even going out. No matter if you're going out, like you gotta you gotta
Mhm.
make sure that you're on top of your hygiene, not for somebody else. I think that's really the snare that gets them where it's like, oh, I need to be strong for somebody else. I need to be strong for everyone else. I need to be this type of person for everybody else. What about you though? Like you got to be that person for you first and foremost so that you have enough to fill other people's cups, right? Like you play a factor in that too. And God forbid you're being strong and you're doing all of this stuff for somebody else who is not appreciative of it, and you find yourself being exploited, which I feel a lot of men find themselves in that situation as well, where they end up getting hurt because they sacrificed so much for somebody who just never had the best of intentions, and that can only happen when you're disrespecting yourself. You're not recognizing like, wow, you know what, maybe they're not treating me to like a standard that I should accept, and maybe this is not somebody that I should be constantly pouring into. They find themselves hurt, they get guarded, and they don't believe in love anymore, and they go to these like extreme extents because they're not picking up on the little nuances.
Yeah, you see that happen like every day. What
Hmm.
what role does nutrition play in your personal approach to men's wellness? And do you recommend any specific dietary tips?
You know what? I also think that's something that's very catered and very specific to each man. And plus the nutritional aspects, like they extend beyond just like there's something specific for men and there's something specific for women. Of course, we have our little, different dietary needs and maybe they're not the exact numbers, but the concept is the same with whole foods. If you just stick to mostly whole foods, you will be satiated. I'm really, really big on protein because protein keeps you satiated for a long amount of time, and it's really important. It's imperative that we have the amount of protein that we need. If you're focused on the protein, everything else will follow. If you're focused on the protein, you will get enough calories in the day. You will get, the right nutritional amounts of everything else. Of course, I can't say blanket statement, but majority of the time, like 99% of the time, if you just worry about protein, everything else will follow.
How do you encourage men to be more open about their mental health struggle?
Okay, this is so funny because I recently had a coaching call where a man confided in me saying that he needed to learn how to be more vulnerable. And honestly, my instant advice is never to just, oh yeah, just express how you feel. I think that's way too vague, and that's never advice that I would give anybody. You shouldn't be vulnerable with people who are not equipped to handle your emotions. Like if I know that somebody tends to not address emotions, like maybe they're the type of person to make a joke instead of address their own feelings, or they just, make jokes at other people's expense. That's not somebody who I would ever confide in. That's not anybody that would be sensitive with or vulnerable with. And it's when you do that, when you are vulnerable with people who are not equipped to emotionally handle you, that's when you get hurt because it's like, oh, you just didn't even respond to that. You didn't even care about what it is that I had to say. Well, they can't even address their own emotions. You know what I'm saying? I think it also is important that we remember how much people care about us when it comes to the people who are closest to us. And that's kind of how I encouraged him, where I reminded him, the people who are closest to you, like, do you think that they would care if you were going through this? Do you think that if they were going through that, you would want them to confide in you? You know what I mean? Like, they would want to care for you, they want to love you. Don't restrict them from the capacity to love you and care for you.
What are your thoughts on the importance of holistic health versus focusing only on physical fitness?
I think that's definitely just super nuanced, super like case by case basis. I know I grew up more holistic. But either way, I think that if you're focused on improving yourself as a man and you're focused on, I'm going to do what's best for me, you will pave your way. You'll find your way towards the best option for you, regardless of what that looks like in every aspect of your life, financially, with your relationships, with your nutrition, all of that kind of stuff. When you focus on, I want the best for me, I respect myself enough to do what's right for me, everything else will follow.
Your bio includes the Bible verse, Esther 4, verse 14. How does this verse influence your approach to your content on health and wellness?
Oh my goodness, I love God. I love God. So that's number one. Okay. Every advice that I give, like, even the reason I'm here, the reason I am who I am today, that's Jesus right there. Like, what? So that's number one. Number two, Esther 4:14. I probably won't be able to quote it bar for bar, but it says, you were created for a time such as this. And I think that that is really kind of, like summarizes everything that I do because we're in a day and age where it's standard for a woman to tear down a man, and it's standard to say I hate men, and it's standard to, just oh my goodness, he cheated, and all men are this, and all men are cheaters, and da, 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 everything is wrong with every man ever. I just like I see it, I hear you, I've experienced, it's not that I've never been hurt by a man ever, but to make general blanket statements like that is a little bit much, and to kind of oppress an entire gender for based on like the worst of them is kind of unfair. And I think that the men who are just hearing this and they're taking this in and they're internalizing it, they need someone else to know that someone else, not just another man, but that a woman is kind of like backing them and is like, yo, you're good. Just do the best that you can. Like you're not a lost cause, you're none of that. I don't know, men are like 80% of suicides and they're 50% of the population. Like that's a lot. And I don't like to think that the same people who are like supporting me and so many other women, so many other businesses and endeavors are the same people who don't even see the worth in themselves.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you see a connection between spiritual well-being and physical health in your message to your audience?
You know what? Okay, so I don't necessarily speak too much on my spiritual takes on my TikTok simply because I don't know, it's just not something that I've encountered. I never shy away from it, but I'm usually super to the point, so I don't really go in depth with my TikToks. However, on my Twitch, I'll have like multiple hour long streams, and if that comes up, you already know I'm like, yep, yep, yep. Oh yeah, you want to talk about God? Let's go, let's go. So I definitely talk a lot about how, there are spirits and principalities. Everything that happens in the physical happened in the spiritual first, And I like to also tie everything that I'm saying spiritually, and that's biblically backed. I also like to make the parallel into the scientific and worldly explanation so that people who might not share my beliefs can see, oh, wait, what she's saying is not just, oh, this is based on the Bible. Like, no, there's actual science behind this. There's actual things that I can comprehend. Like there's something that I can grasp in as to what it is that she's saying. So yeah, with the spiritual realm, it's like when we think of things, our mind, right? Our mental headspace, like that's not tangible. That's not in the physical realm, right? That's in the spiritual realm. That's mental. So it's like you think of something before you do it. Your brain tells your body to move before it happens, right? And in that same way, the things that happen spiritually first is what determines what manifests into the physical. So I speak a lot about that. I speak about how, things are more than just what we see tangibly. And yeah, there's definitely, oh, the spiritual realm is definitely like a legal ground. I like to use that example too, where it's like if there is a house and you have a house and somebody's trespassing on that house, unless you call the authorities, they might not leave. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's kind of like how spiritual warfare is. If you're not calling the cops on the person who's trespassing, are they still breaking the law? Absolutely. They don't have legal right to be in your house. But if you just go up to them, oh, go away, leave me alone. You're not supposed to be here. They don't need to leave, right? You better call the cops on them. Hey, get them out of here, right? So that's what we got to do in when it comes to praying and with God. It's like there are spirits. There are spirits that are going around tormenting people, and it's like you're allowing them to fester within you because you're not enforcing your legality in the spiritual. You're not saying, yo, God, in your word it says X, Y, and Z. I'm going to come into agreement with you with that. So therefore, this human, yo, you ain't got no control over me. You're not allowed in here. This is a temple, right? My body is a temple. So no, you can't torment me. Absolutely not. And learning that really just changed my life for the better. I have just everything that I've experienced moving forward, it's like a weight has been lifted off of me. And I just genuinely believe that like nothing goes wrong anymore. Like even the most inconvenient things, I'm like, nothing, this is not going wrong. Like I'm good because I know at the end of the day, God made a plan for me, right? So he's taken everything else into account. He's taken into account that, oh, you'd lose your job at this point, but it doesn't matter because he already knows X, Y, and Z will happen afterwards. So that's null and void, right? When you can see the full picture, the little details don't matter. Doesn't matter that you went homeless because 3 days later you're supposed to meet a millionaire who takes you in, whatever it is, right? When you understand that like God is strategic as to how He places you in your situation in your life, and you come into agreement with that. That's the most important part too. because you can't just live your life however you want. You have to also take the steps that God has predestined for you, right? If you're living the way that you want, then you might mess it up. You might lose your job. Oh, I'm going to go back and beg for that job. God didn't tell you to do that. God doesn't want you to do that because now you have a job and now you're going to miss out on this other opportunity where somebody was going to give you a better job. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but once you come into agreement with God, things just go so much better. Come into agreement with God and come out of agreement with any demonic covenants. Anytime you've come into agreement with spirits, that's why it's important what you say to yourself. Because when you're insulting yourself, even others, because your brain doesn't understand when you're speaking to somebody else. Everything that you're saying to somebody else, you're also saying to yourself. So it's like, oh, I'm stupid. You know, you're coming into agreement with that. And it's just it's unnecessary difficulties in your life. But yes, that was a very long-winded answer. So I love Jesus, and we better warn that spirit, baby, because I'm not trying to be tormented by nothing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like, I definitely love Christ, and I think, like, it's important to, spread, like, his word. How do you encourage your followers to embrace their purpose, for such a time as this in their health journeys?
See, that's a good question. I'm not sure that I specifically speak on like nutritional health in that sense. I think with mental health, it's really just like reminding them of their worth because I feel like that's such a big thing for men. Men tend to undermine their worth, undermine their value. They tend to look to others to determine how worthy they are or like look to their accomplishments and stuff like that. And though yes, they do play like a factor in their life, you know, if you accomplish more, you'll feel better about yourself. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have worth. I tend to reiterate the fact that you haven't stepped into your worth. It's always been there. You just haven't stepped into it. I've given an example on my Twitch channel about an $100 bill being on the floor. If you were walking on the street and you saw $100 bill on the sidewalk, would you pick it up? Probably would. It had some shoe marks. It was stepped all over. Would you pick it up? Probably still would. But if that $100 bill was all dirty, it was completely black. You couldn't even tell what it is. It just looked like some random piece of paper. Would you pick it up? Absolutely not, right? Because you don't know the worth. Nobody else can see that worth. Therefore, nobody else will treat you as if you're worth that much. They won't pick up that $100 bill because they don't know that it's $100 bill, right? So you need to step into your worth. Step into your worth, like with your appearance, with your health, you know, in all aspects to the point that it shines outwardly so other people can pick up on it too. You know, not because it's important what they think of you, but because it'll change the way that you experience life. At the end of the day, the way that other people treat you will change how like your opportunities, just like how you're treated in general. Like, I don't know. I think men kind of crutch on this idea of, oh, I don't care what people think of me. Okay, but you should care about the people who could actually help you though, because there are some people who could give you opportunities if they knew that you were somebody who needed this opportunity or could use or can benefit from this opportunity.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Can you share a personal story about a moment when the Esther chapter 4, verse 14 verse gave you strength or clarity in your own wellness path?
I've read the story of Esther so many times. I'm probably gonna read it again. But oh my goodness, clarity. I'm not sure that I would say clarity. I think I would say that it definitely, just the Bible in general, you could read the same things over and over and over again, but as long as you have the Holy Spirit, God will give you a different revelation every single time. So definitely with like that entire story of Esther, it's like, I mean, I guess you could argue the fact that, oh, you know what, let me summarize the story of Esther. Essentially, there was this Jewish woman, she was an orphan, and she was elected to be one of the women chosen to kind of be, I don't even know how to describe this, but she was one of the many women who were trying to be the queen of the king. And so they had a year of preparing her, beauty treatments, to preparing her to be potentially elected by the king to be his queen. And she was the one who was chosen. And nobody knew that she was Jewish. And there was somebody who was a leader in the kingdom, and he decided that he hated the Jews and that he wanted to massacre them. And the king agreed to it, not really caring too much about it. He had no say in that or no care for that. So he was just like, okay, that's what you want. And when Esther heard about this, she was like, oh shoot, what in the world can I do? If I go up to that king, I could die. You know, if you go up to the king without him calling you over, he could literally have you done, right? So she was like, I don't know what I can do. And her father was like, you were made for a time such as this. Like, what if God gave you this opportunity, gave you, you know, the ability to even be in the position that you are as a Jewish woman, as now the queen, in order to stop this massacre from happening. And he also mentioned that regardless if you step into your will, God will, vindicate the Jews at a later point in time. But what if you were called for this now? And I feel like that's really important because there are a lot of people who could, if in God's will, they could do major change. But it's like they're too worried or they're too scared or they feel like there's such a big threat. Like we live in a day and age where things are just easier than ever. Okay, I can pull up a phone and talk to you. I don't even know where you are. All right, and we able to have this little chit chat. You can share this with billions of people around the world from the click of a button, right? Like it's all mental. It's all in our heads, and yeah, like we all have such amazing opportunities to do amazing good. It's just a matter of whether or not we're gonna follow God's will for our life or not.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What has been the most rewarding feedback you've received from your TikTok community regarding your health advice?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to start because they've been making me cry a lot. But I think the most recent was when I got feedback from one of my coaching calls, and he was like, you mentioned that I was intelligent, and that put a smile on my face, and I really needed to hear what it is that you had to say. And it's like, that in itself, like, okay, that's very sweet. It doesn't seem like that big of a thing, but the thing is, it's so, I hate to say it like this, but I just feel like it's so easy to please a man. You know what I mean? It's just like the fact that it takes so little. I just pointed out something that I picked up on because I find it really important. If I think of something nice about someone, say it, right? So he sounded very intelligent. So I told him, you sound very intelligent, I can tell. And the fact that that little comment stuck with him and made him smile, and it's just that it takes so little. It takes so little to make a difference. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like it's just that's rewarding to me to know that that's all it takes. Like, I want to do more than that. Like, please. Next. Like, who's next?
What advice would you give to someone who is just starting to take their health seriously but feels overwhelmed?
Okay. I actually recently took this course on how to have a millionaire's mindset. And something that they clocked my tea on was that you need to focus. You need to focus. I definitely have serial entrepreneur traits, which is not bad in itself, but really it comes from the bad part is where I'm trying to juggle 10 billion different things at once. It's like you're not really able to get things done. The wording that they use is they said you can multitask, but you can't multi-focus, And at the end of the day, like it's going to take longer to accomplish such simple things. You got to focus on what is important. Like you have plenty of time to do everything else. You know what I mean? Like just find one thing, zone in on it, get that done, and then rinse and repeat. Especially because once you do it that way, it'll be faster each time rather than making so many different mistakes in so many different aspects. If it's, I mean, I can't think of any other reason why a man would be overwhelmed. I guess if he has super long hours at work, but I wouldn't even consider that being overwhelmed. It might be a reframing thing that they need to think of too, where it's like they're convincing themselves that they're overwhelmed, but in reality, it's like something else is going down underneath, like whatever it is mentally, like they might have like a mental block where they're thinking a certain way. It would definitely be something that I'd have to talk to a man about one on one because there's no one shoe fits all.
I get that. How do you stay motivated personally to maintain your wellness routines amidst life's challenges?
Ooh, well, to be honest, that's like something I'm doing recently too. Like me and these men are in this together because what? Like you reminded me, honestly, I'm grateful because you reminded me about this interview and I was like, dang, I did tell him that I was gonna do an interview. So let me be a woman of my word, you know what I'm saying? Let me show up. And so I was like, hey, like let me wash my face. I haven't done that in a few days. Like let me, and I was like, oh, I don't need to put on makeup. And I was like, no, let me put on makeup. We're practicing, right? So it's just don't despise humble beginnings. Like it's okay to take baby steps. You don't have to have it all perfect. I think that's kind of where men get tripped up, where they think, oh, well, if I can't do X, Y, and Z, then I might as well not do any of them at all. Like, no, do the little things. Like take the little steps and you'll be able to accumulate them a lot more often.